Entrepreneurs need a reset button. With more than 75% of new ventures failing to ever even return the original capital to investors, wouldn't it be great if a new venture was more like a video game where you could hit the reset button before you go bankrupt?
All games are educational. It doesn't matter whether you're flinging Angry Birds or shooting aliens or leading a guild into battle. Our brains are always learning. So the only question is not, is our games educational? The only question is how valuable and transferable are the skills that I'm gaining in a particular game to my life in the real world?
While this is not the deal for active startup founders, you can gain valuable experience as a startup founder using gaming-based simulations.
So this is the most realistic small business startup and operation simulation I think that's ever been created. Barbershops, cosmetic boutiques, online stores.
Today's guest on The Entreprofessor is Mathew Georghiou, the founder of GoVenture, a portfolio of simulation gaming software that teach critical entrepreneurship skills in a fun and safe environment.
So the premise is I run the restaurant just like I would in the real world. We allow you to experience more in our simulations than you do as an entrepreneur in the real world. Think back about, well, how long did it take me to feel comfortable as an entrepreneur? Comfortable with, I think I'm making the right decision. Again, you never know if it's the right decision, but I think I'm kind of in the right direction. I think it generally takes several years to get there. Whereas with our simulation, we can accelerate that time and we can have you experience things that you never experienced in the real world, but I can give you that experience in a matter of hours.
You'll want to stay all the way to the end to hear Mathew's advice for aspiring entrepreneurs who feel like they are ready to launch. Let's get into it. Greetings, Doc John, the Entreprofessor here. Really excited to have with me today for an interview Mathew Georghiou, the founder of MediaSpark and the creator of GoVenture. So Mathew, really glad to have you here. Welcome.
Hey, John, thanks for having me on the Entreprofessor. I look forward to sharing our story with you.
Awesome. Well, anyone who's watched me very long knows that I love simulators, especially those that relate to entrepreneurship. So I am looking forward to hearing about many of the things that you do. But why don't you start by, and I know there's like MediaSpark's the company, but GoVenture is the, I guess I'd call it a whole family of simulations. It's quite a portfolio, but maybe just talk a bit about, what MediaSpark is all about and a bit about GoVenture.
Sure. So MediaSpark is a company that I founded way back in the mid 1990s. So we've been around for a very, very long time. And we started as a kind of multimedia services company and then eventually started creating our own products. And one of the first products we created was an entrepreneurship simulation. And back in those days, DOS was still around, DOS operating systems, and then Windows started becoming very popular. So we created one of the kind of early Windows simulators, and we sold it into schools, and it got a fair bit of traction. And that encouraged us to keep going and keep upgrading the product. And eventually we started launching other simulations, others in business and financial literacy and personal finance and health products. And so now we have a suite of simulations all under the GoVenture brand that have been used in thousands of schools, universities, colleges, businesses, nonprofits around the world.
Yeah, that's excellent. Was there a moment where you just all of a sudden had this thought, like, I need to build a simulator? What was it that was kind of, where did it all begin? Like, what was the moment for you?
Well, back then, believe it or not, entrepreneurship was just kind of bubbling up as a popular topic in a lot of circles, particularly for economic development in various regions.
Mhm.
And one of our team members who was working with us at the time had suggested he had seen a hot dog stand simulator in DOS, run in DOS, and he
Yeah.
showed it to me. And he said, entrepreneurship is kind of becoming a hot topic. Maybe we should create something like this. And originally we were going to create something pretty basic in Windows. And then my background is programming and engineering, and so once I got my hands on it, I started building it out. I just kind of went overboard on it and created something super comprehensive, incredibly comprehensive. And that was both good and bad. It took more time to develop and so on, more effort, but it ended up creating, I think, differentiating the product from anything that's ever been out there. So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah. Who's your perfect customer? Who do you is most likely to, seek out what you're doing or dive in and start to use it?
It's interesting. Our customers are incredibly broad. Like almost every category you can think of, we have customers. And but in terms of the most popular, most common customer we have tends to be an educator or trainer. So somebody who's already teaching a topic, whether it's business, accounting, marketing, financial literacy, and so on. And they realize that their engagement level is not where it needs to be in terms of their students, or certain topics are difficult to teach,
Yeah.
using traditional methods, and they just want to level up their course. And so they might search for, or some cases we might reach out to them, something to do that. And even though we're talking about simulation, really the umbrella in which we're talking about is experiential learning,
Mhm.
right? Learning by doing. And that's what we specialize in, is experiential learning. And in fact, we describe it as experiential, social, and gamified learning. It's kind of the integration of those three things. So anyone that's looking to level up their course by adding something to it, that's where they might find us and plug our simulation. And sometimes they're plugging our simulation as maybe, 10, 20% of what they do. In other cases, we've had instructors who threw away what they're doing and used our simulation as the complete experience for that course.
Yeah. One thing I've noticed in everything I've seen, just the how robust all the materials are that you have that surround the simulation. So it's not just
Yeah,
the game, but I think about like in particular like the accounting worksheets and everything where you for the food trucks where it makes it very simple to like apply basic principles of journal entries and all those kinds of things. That seems like a strong suit with what you do.
for sure. We create incredibly comprehensive experiences. We have several simulations that I can confidently say are the most realistic ever created ever in the world, whether it's running a certain type of business or living your personal financial future. But because our products are educational and a lot of our customers are trainers, instructors, many of which have no experience in simulation at all, never played a simulation, never used one, we create really robust training materials and we also try to automate things as well, because a big challenge is, as a teacher and educator, is you spend a lot of your time doing administrative things that are not necessarily helping your students learn what they need to learn, right? And so we automate assessment and do what we describe as authentic assessments, and all that requires really robust materials. And another way that we're differentiated is we're not a company that kind of takes entertainment products and applies them to education. We're a company that builds all our products from the first idea to the final completion. It's all about learning. And so we have to design our products very differently, including robust materials and support as part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd be remiss if I didn't drill in a little bit on the authentic assessment. Talk a little bit about that, because that's something I know that's pretty unique in the simulation world and also would be very interesting, particularly as someone who's teaching business or entrepreneurial concepts.
Yeah, I think it's no secret that traditional assessment methods like quizzes and exams and so on really cannot demonstrate competency.
Mhm.
You can game your way through all of those types of things, and so we wanted to develop assessment models that are really robust and really authentic. And by authentic, I mean actually assessing your skill level. And so when you play our business simulation as an example, we don't just monitor a metric like profit, which might be the first thing that comes to mind in business. But business is much more than profit, right? You've got customer satisfaction, you've got employee morale, you've got gross profit margin ratios, and all sorts of metrics. So we monitor and track all the metrics you could ever imagine, and then we create a holistic skill score based on your actual performance. And the skill score is not just profit; it's on 10, 15, 20, 30 different metrics, all of which contribute to a weighted score. And you can monitor your score in real time, and you can see exactly where you're strong and where you're deficient. And a big challenge in business, as you know, is that there are no perfect answers. Every time you do one thing over here to make something better, something else gets a little worse. it's a
Right.
it's a constant compromise of resources and time and so on. And that actually happens in our simulation. So you're never going to get a 100% skill score, because you're always going to have to compromise something. Yes, you can pay your employees more, but now your profit margin is going to drop.
Right.
Yes, you can give you more value to your customers, but your gross profit margin is going to drop. So there's always this balance, and that feeds into this assessment model.
Yeah, nice. That's awesome. So talk about the categories, because it's a pretty wide range of different categories that you have, and then some of the simulations within.
Yeah, so we cover business and most subjects in business. So entrepreneurship, intro to business, startup, marketing, accounting, and so on. We have personal finance and money. So we have a simulation, sort of like living your life for 20 years into the future, and you can spend money, you can go to school or not go to school and get student loans and so on. You can also invest. So we have an investing module with stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, and gold. And so you can kind of experiment with that as well. We've got a typing game as well that teaches you how to type. I'm a big believer, if you want to increase the productivity of an entire region or nation, the best way to do it is not through fancy technology, but it's teach everybody how to type. Because if you've ever looked around at your colleagues, hunting and pecking, you realize how slow and inefficient our world is without typing. So we developed an interesting typing game to teach that. We have a job interview simulation. We have a health product, a gamified ebook for health. So we cover a variety of subjects. Business and entrepreneurship and financial literacy tends to be our sweet spot.
Very nice. That's awesome. And I would say also, at least in one case, well, I guess I would call a graphic novel on how to be a super business person. And
as part of our support material. So I have a couple of books that I've written and published. One's called Business Superhero. Another's called Digital Marketing Superhero. We've got a project management one coming out as well. So we try to, even with our conventional books, we try to be different and creative with them.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well, I think it would be really interesting for everyone to just see what we're talking about. Do you mind giving us a little bit of a demo of one of the sims and just kind of walk us through it?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's bring that up here. So I think you're seeing my screen now, and this is our GoVenture website, which is goventure.net. I'm going to go to the products tab just to review some of those products I mentioned. So we have a variety of business simulations. We have an entrepreneur simulation, and we have a CEO. We have a global business game called World, which is actually free to play. So while you and I are talking right now, somebody around the world is joining that game for the first time. And the reason we have different games like this is because there's no perfect experience to teach what you need to teach. You have to kind of deliver a different type of experience based on what it is that you want to accomplish. And that's why we have multiple simulations like that. We have a digital marketing simulation, leadership, project management. We even have board games and card games that use our methodology of experiential, gamified, and social learning, our life and money, personal finance, typing, job interview, health, and so on. But let me dive into our entrepreneur simulation so we can take a look at that. So this
I love the tactical handout, the board games and card games. That can be a really interesting kind of device in a classroom setting, as well as the online games as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually have different levels of board games too, where we have some that are a little bit stronger on the entertainment side, a little bit lighter on the education. They're a little bit easier to play. And then we have ones that are much more focused specifically on education. Still a little bit fun, but really focused on the education side. And so you kind of pick and choose the experience you want to have there as well.
Yeah.
So what I'm showing here is our entrepreneur simulation. So this is the most realistic small business startup and operation simulation I think that's ever been created. And we actually start you with a lemonade stand, and then we level you up to a kiosk. And now we've leveled up to kind of the top level, which is what I'm showing you here, which is we call it full business. And we have about 20 different business types that you can run, various restaurants kind of modeled after popular businesses like a McDonald's or Starbucks or Chipotle, Pizza Hut. We also have barbershops, cosmetic boutiques, online stores, fitness gyms, and so on. And so the premise here, I'm running a restaurant. So the premise is I run the restaurant just like I would in the real world. So this is the location of my business here on this map. And then I can use the menu at the bottom to navigate. So I can see my menu of products. So there's a hamburger, French fries, and chicken nuggets, and so on. And I can click on a product and see what it's made of, all of its ingredients, including its cost of goods. And I can adjust the selling price in real time. So a big part of simulation is that ability to experiment. And, in the real world of business, no one knows the right answer. A lot of people who are not entrepreneurs think us entrepreneurs have all the answers. And the truth is, none of us have the answers. We just have ideas, and we're willing to take a risk on those ideas. And so what we do is we try something and we see if it works, and we experiment and we adjust to try to make it successful. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but none of us really has the answers. We all have to experiment. That's why you hear the word pivot a lot, right? Where a company tries something, it doesn't really work, and so they pivot. But and you can do that in our experience here. So this is our product menu, and then we have our inventory, which is all the ingredients. Now, a restaurant is really tough to tough to run because you have a lot of ingredients, and the ingredients tend to spoil or expire pretty quickly. So it's a really tough business from an inventory standpoint. We have different suppliers that we can choose from. So while I'm running a restaurant, I can customize my restaurant differently than you might customize yours. So I might try to build a low cost, quick serve restaurant where you might try to build a more premium restaurant. So you're going to buy your ingredients from premium suppliers. So you'll get your meats and your breads from the top quality supplier, but that's going to cost more money, and which means your prices are probably going to have to go up. So these are things you have to kind of consider in the simulation. And so you can manage your inventory and review your orders that you've had over time. Then we can move on to our employees. So as you run your business, you're going to realize that you can't serve a lot of customers if you're just working on your own. So at some point, you're going to have to hire employees. And we have dozens of employees all modeled and simulated here that you can review to choose who you might want to hire. You can click on an employee and actually look at all of their personality and characteristics, like their education, the ability to learn, their attitude and motivation. So think of it almost like an interview where you're trying to assess these characteristics in employees you're going to hire. And you can negotiate salary offers. And then once employees have been hired, you'll see them on your employee list, and you can monitor their morale, their salary levels, and so on. You can also include benefits and incentives as part of their compensation package. So you can have, health insurance or dental insurance, and paid leave, and so on. You can train employees. So while they're on the job, you can actually choose to train them, and then you can review HR reports to see how well they're doing. And once they're hired, you can move over to your operations, and then you can schedule them to work. So this is my work schedule. Right now, I'm only scheduled, my business is only scheduled for Monday to be open. So I can open it now on Tuesdays. And in my smartphone here, I can see it's actually Friday. So let's go ahead and open on Friday. It's 8 in the morning. So there we go. So we've just opened for business. In fact, if I close this in a moment, I'm going to see customers. Here they are. They're coming into my business in real time. And these icons above are the customer feedback. So I can actually see real world feedback in real time from my customers. And one of the feedback I might see is that maybe my service is too slow. So I can come back to my work schedule here, and I can choose one of my employees, and I can have them come into work during maybe rush hour lunchtime. And I can do that with every employee, have multiple employees working, and so on. Then I can move on to marketing. So if my business is working out okay, and I think I'm ready for more customers, I can come here and start investing in marketing, including my business reputation and my advertising effectiveness. So I have various advertising programs that I can invest in. I can review customer psychographics to try to target specific customers and what they're interested in. I can do targeting of those customers. I can do keyword messaging in my marketing. And then I have different media options that I can choose to distribute my message with. Then we have a finance area where I can look at my payables and my receivables and my payroll. I can also look at my seed funding. I can take out a loan. I can even sell shares in my restaurant and have shareholders and pay out dividends to those shareholders as I play. And then we have a reports area where we can access all the data we'd ever want in our business, from balance sheets, income statements. We can look at our customer feedback data. We even have general ledgers, general journals, all part of teaching and learning accounting, if that's something where people want to go. So incredibly detailed. And then we talked earlier about assessment. I can actually come here and click on my performance report, and I can see the full assessment of my skill score and a breakdown of all those metrics we were talking about earlier: finance, leadership, sales, marketing, operations. So it's measuring me in all of these metrics in real time, and I can see them being adjusted as I play. So that's GoVentures. There's still even more to it, but I'll pause there.
Yeah,
And,
that is really, it's so detailed. You really get it's like even within each area, as you say, you can really dive in and, work on the experience and then drive to those learning outcomes at the same time. So I really like that.
Yeah, and and you can play it for as long as you want to play it. There's no specific end goal. You can go bankrupt. People ask me that. Can you go? Of course, you have to be able to go bankrupt. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a real experience.
Yeah.
And if you go bankrupt, you can start over again, which is the great thing about simulation. In fact, you and I were talking earlier about
The reset
offline about reset. Yeah. And one of the things we've discovered over the years is that players really like that ability to start fresh. Sometimes you think that you want to play a really long experience, and some people do, but that opportunity to stop and start over again, it works really well. And so if we talk about it from an educational perspective, there's kind of two types of students who play a simulation. One of those that do well the first time and those that don't. So
Hmm.
those that do well the first time, if you start them over again, they get excited because they feel like, okay, I'm going to show that I'm really good at this and I'm going to do well again. This wasn't a fluke, right? And then those who didn't do well, I get excited because it's like, okay, I made a lot of mistakes the first time out, and I realized those mistakes. I'm not going to make those mistakes again. Now I'd like have the opportunity to apply what I've learned into this next experience. So we often advise instructors when they're using our products, don't just play one long simulation. Play
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 simulations because it's better from a learning perspective.
Yeah. That reset button gives you that ability to apply the learning that you gained in previous runs.
Yes,
Yeah, I really like
exactly.
that. So what would be the timer like for a run? Like, is there a point where it says, okay, the game's over at this point, or is there a certain level of achievement, or what's the other end of it?
So there's no hard end goal because some people want to play a long time and some may not. So we wanted to give people that flexibility. However, as an instructor, if you're a trainer instructor using this, you control that progression and that endpoint. So
Okay.
I mentioned earlier that this has 3 levels: a lemonade stand, a kiosk level, and a full business. And we recommend everybody progress through all those levels. It doesn't matter who you are. And we have middle school students playing this product. We have MBA students playing this product. We have major financial institutions who use it for customer empathy training for their employees.
Yeah.
And we tell everybody you should go through that progression. And you, as the facilitator, control that progression based on how much time you have to devote to the experience. So if you only have a certain amount of time, you might only play lemonade stand for maybe an hour, and then kiosk for 2 hours, and then full business for longer. Others, if you're maybe we're working with younger students, this level of experience that I just showed you here, it may be too deep for them, right? So you would spend more time on lemonade stand and kiosk and not go beyond that. So it's very flexible.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's really interesting, and just to see like the wide range there of the experience that people can have. So that's great. So going back to just the business as a whole, now that and obviously it's like you've been doing this for a long time, you've had a lot of success with it. If you were going to go back all the way to the beginning and start over, what would you do differently this time around?
Oh, plenty of things. So one is I might not run an education company. Education is very fulfilling. It's very personally fulfilling because you're changing lives, and we've reached literally millions of people around the world. I was just talking to someone just the other day who told me that they became an entrepreneur because they played our simulation many years ago in
Oh,
school, and they didn't realize they liked business until they did that. So it's very fulfilling, but from a business perspective, it's incredibly challenging incredibly challenging industry that I would not necessarily recommend to anyone. But if I were to start over again and I were to choose education, I might also choose different subjects. Like I might have started with math, for example. In fact, my background is in math, um, but I find entrepreneurship much more interesting. But might have chosen something like math or reading because I think there's a lot more demand for products and for innovative products in those areas. It's kind of the difference between you probably heard this term before, selling a painkiller or a vitamin.
yeah.
I'm selling vitamins. I think they're in a lot of ways they're painkillers, but my customers a lot of times see them as vitamins.
Okay.
Um, whereas if you're selling a painkiller, it's a little bit easier. And just this is my entrepreneurship hat talking right now,
Yeah.
but that's some of the things I think I would do differently.
I like to ask a similar question. Is it aspirin? Is it vitamin? Or is it candy? You might be candy.
Yeah, if you can.
GoVentures might be candy. It's
Yes. Yeah, it's all, it's kind of depends on the perspective, right? If you're an instructor, your engagement level is low, maybe you're a university and your recruitment has been dropping,
Mhm.
then we become more of a painkiller because I think we're drawing students in, we're increasing engagement levels, we're
Yeah.
increasing results. But if you're not familiar with simulation, then you're starting to look at that candy vitamin side. In fact, when I started this, when we the first simulation, I mentioned I started MediaSpark 30 years ago almost. Our first simulation was launched in 2000. We started in the late 90s, but launched in 2000. When we launched at the time, and I was introducing it to schools, I couldn't use the word game to describe it
Mm.
because we'd be thrown out. You can't use a game in school. If they can't have fun, that's not
Can't
right.
have fun. What's
You
up
can't
with
have fun.
that?
So, it would be experiential learning, simulation-based learning. Nowadays, and that lasted for a very long time, let me tell you, a lot longer than I would have expected. But nowadays, I think people realize the power of gaming and that, games, and I think I try to share this message a lot, is that the reality is that all games are educational. Let me say that again. All games are educational. It doesn't matter whether you're flinging Angry Birds or shooting aliens or leading a guild into battle. Our brains are always learning. So the only question is not, is our games educational? The only question is how valuable and transferable are the skills that I'm gaining in a particular game to my life in the real world? And
Yeah.
with a lot of entertainment games, it's very little. There's maybe not a lot of transferable skills. If you're playing Candy Crush or Angry Birds, there's not a lot of transfer. There may be Angry Birds, a little bit of physics stuff, but it's so minimal. It's not something you're going to hang your hat on. But if you design a product specifically for learning, now all of a sudden the skills you're gaining are incredibly transferable. And that's, I think, the big difference. And I think people are recognizing that more than in the past.
Yeah. How much is that? I mean, it'd be interesting to kind of hear your perspective on, you've been now, an entrepreneur and involved in an entrepreneurial organization for decades, and you have a simulation that simulates that. How close is running through the GoVenture simulation to your actual experience as an entrepreneur? How would you compare them?
Incredibly close. In fact, we allow you to experience more in our simulation than you do as an entrepreneur in the real world. Because, you consider the fact of, I often think about my own experience. So when I started my business, I had no business experience. I think I took one business course in my entire life in college. Everything else was engineering and math. So I had to learn entrepreneurship, in the school of hard knocks, like many people. And I think back about, well, how long did it take me to feel comfortable as an entrepreneur? Comfortable with, I think I'm making the right decision. Again, you never know if it's the right decision, but I think I'm kind of in the right direction. I say it took me about 2 years to kind of get to that point. And I was in a tech company that was moving fast. So if you're in a more traditional company, how long does it really take? And I think it generally takes several years to get there.
Yeah.
Whereas with our simulation, we can accelerate that time and we can have you experience things that you never experienced in the real. For example, I was showing you that demo. You could sell shares in your business. Only a tiny fraction of entrepreneurs ever sell shares in their business. They're never going to have that experience, but I can give you that experience in a matter of hours. Same with, managing employees in certain ways that you may not be able to do on your own. So it's incredibly realistic. But I'll tell you one thing that is missing. And the one thing that is missing, and not just in our simulations, but most simulations that are created, and that is the authenticity of the human experience, the human interaction.
Yeah.
And as realistic as the product I just showed you is, there is no human interaction. Now you could compare yourself on a leaderboard, and we have some head-to-head multiplayer simulations where you're comparing your decisions affect others that you're playing against. But that authenticity of us doing business together as business people is not there. And that led me to actually create the global business game that I mentioned earlier. Where I said, while we're talking here, somebody's joining that game for the first time. I created that because I wanted to build that authenticity of the human experience. So in that game, it is a game designed to force collaboration. So as an example, I can start out as a manufacturing entrepreneur where I'm manufacturing, let's say, cars. We have a few different products you can manufacture. So let's say I'm manufacturing cars, and there are virtual consumers that I can sell the cars to. But as a manufacturer, I cannot sell my cars to those virtual consumers. I have to find another player, which might be you, John. You're acting as a retailer or a car dealer, and that's your business. You're the frontline business. So that leads me to reach out to you, or you reach out to me because you need inventory. And we actually negotiate a supply chain agreement between us. Nice. Hey, John, I'll supply you with 20 cars every week at a price of a certain amount. I want you to pay me 50% up front and then 50% upon delivery. We have an agreement. So we actually do those types of deals in the game, and we get that human to human experience. And then we actually even allow you to experience challenging things. For example, I might ship my cars to you, John, but you might not pay me.
Mm.
So what happens then? So I send you a message in the game, or maybe I know you. Hey, John, I really need that money. My cash flow is kind of tight here.
Yeah.
And he said, well, Matthew, you didn't deliver the quality that I expected, or you were late on shipping, so I don't think I'm going to pay you. And then now I'm kind of stuck, and I can now hire another player who's acting as a lawyer. This is real.
Real life, right?
This is real. Now, that lawyer might be doing other things like registering trademarks in the game, which we have, but I can hire that lawyer to mediate the dispute between us. And I can negotiate now a service agreement with that lawyer of what I'm going to pay him to act as my lawyer to represent me. And then that lawyer contacts you. You might agree with the mediation, or you might say, take a hike. I'm not paying Mathew anything. And so then I have a choice. I can actually sue you in the game. This is true. This can happen. I can issue a lawsuit, my lawyer would issue a lawsuit. Now you have to get a defense lawyer to defend you in the game, and then that goes to the GoVenture World Courts to play. So we have these incredibly realistic, authentic experiences that can happen. So I'm kind of giving you a long answer to the short question of how real is it?
Yeah.
But it's something as you can see, I put a lot of thought into over the time, because I want to create as much authenticity as possible.
Yeah. So talk about, you launched this business and you started to get some customers. Talk about a time where you had to really make changes in the organization to be able to grow and start to be able to handle a larger customer base and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I started on my own with a little bit of financing, tens of thousands of dollars, maybe a couple $100,000. I can't remember what it was at the time, but and so it was growing. One employee, then another employee, and then get some financing, get a few more employees to build something. So it was kind of like slow burn along the way. We've always been a small company. We've generally been around 10 to 20 people all these years. I like to call ours small but mighty. Despite our small size, we've worked with Fortune 500 companies, major financial institutions, the U.S. Federal Reserve, multi-billion-dollar companies. They hire us because of our very specialized expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the growth has been very organic and slow. Part of that is also the market, as I was mentioned earlier. The challenge is, trying to sell simulations. These products are so complex to build and expensive to build.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to change them because technology is always changing. But certainly a lot of challenges along the way. There's been times where we've developed products that I've had to abandon, which I kind of regret, because I think I might have made the wrong choice on which product to keep and which product to abandon. But there's been lots of those challenges.
Yeah. Maybe talk a little bit as you bring people together, talk about what some of the dynamics have been in terms of like building an organization, and what do you have, what's it been like, just focusing on culture and values and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in creating a very comfortable work environment for our team. So from very early days, we did not have set work hours. And we were kind of one of the earlier companies do that, where we generally wanted people in the working in the daytime at some point, but some people would show up at 7 a.m., some would show up at 10 or 11 a.m. And my philosophy was always, as long as you put your work in, and generally full-time work is around 40 hours a week. You can take breaks whenever you want to take breaks. You can take lunch whenever you want. You want to take a 2-hour lunch, I don't care. Take your 2-hour lunch as long as you're putting your time in and achieving the progress that we need. I don't think it's helpful to micromanage people from their time. And because one of the things I've also realized and recognized is that we have a lot of stresses in our lives every day, right? And there's a lot of micro stresses. Oh my gosh, I got to get to work by 9 a.m. because if I'm 1 minute late, my boss is going to be upset, or this or that is going to happen. And those are unnecessary stresses in a lot of businesses, right? Now, some businesses, of course, you got to be in at a certain time because customers are coming. But for jobs that don't need that, then why create that stress on your employees? If somebody's got to stay home because their kid is sick, let them stay home and work from home if their kid is sick, right? So I try to eliminate all of those unnecessary stresses. I like to say, I think it's even in our document somewhere, no stupid rules. In our company, we don't have stupid rules. So I think that's a big part of fostering culture is helping people reduce their stress in their life, um, recognizing that their job is not their life, their job is not their family. There's this a lot of this controversy about people saying we're a family. I'd love for people to think like we're a family in our business, but I'll never expect anyone, and I've never said it. I will never say in a meeting, "Oh, we're a family, we're this and that." If you feel like we're a family, great. I love that. But as your boss, I'm never going to tell you you should feel like we're your family.
Mhm.
So I try to give people as much respect as possible. I try to demonstrate that I'll never ask someone to do something that I haven't already done myself or not willing to do myself.
Yeah.
I try to make myself accessible, never a bottleneck. And if you're going to give somebody responsibility to accomplish something, you also have to give them the authority to accomplish it. And I've seen this happen a lot of times where people expect people to do things, but will never give them the authority to do it.
Yeah.
And so then they become a bottleneck and it creates friction. So I don't think there's any secret sauce or secret bullet, silver bullet to solving it. It's a bunch of smaller things I think that contribute to it,
Mhm.
to culture. I also, when I hire over the years, I never hired based on credentials. I don't care if somebody has an MBA or degrees or diplomas. I don't care where you went to school. I don't care if you didn't go to school. All I care about is that you have the right attitude, you're easy to work with, and you have the right skills, or I can train you on the right skills if necessary. So that's kind of the philosophy that I've used in that.
That's great. Yeah, along the way, as you've been growing, what are some of the hurdles that you've run into, and how have you overcome them?
Oh, what time is it? It's going to take forever to talk about hurdles. There's hurdles every single day, and every large ones and small ones. I mean, everything from raising money. I've raised a few $1 millions over the years, but it's been bits and pieces, never one big chunk. And I sometimes I've raised money and then had unreasonable milestone expectations. Um, that the goalpost keeps getting moved, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You have issues with customers where you do everything you can to treat them well, but they still don't acknowledge or they still are unhappy in some way. That doesn't happen very often, but the challenges are endless in running a business, and when you're running a tech business, it's multiplied. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, I could talk for hours on challenges.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about AI and 3D imaging and virtual reality, immersive reality. How's that? How do you think that's affecting your business currently, and what do you think that's going to look like in the future?
Yeah, so I mean, AI is affecting lots of things. I think some people overestimate how quickly it's going to change the world. There are some parts of the world it is already changed,
Yeah.
for sure. But I think generally, it may not be as quick as people might expect. Of course, there are developments happening faster. We're in the process of implementing AI into some of our products, but there's still a lot. There's a lot of human parts that have to be accommodated for. And in the education business, we have an additional responsibility. I find that other industries may not have, in the
Mhm.
sense that we have to be accurate in what we do. We're teaching people skills, and we build a reputation on doing it well.
Mhm.
And if I just throw AI on, in fact, we're having this discussion internally here, just in terms of our implementation of AI in some of our products, is the whole challenge with hallucination. And which so people watching this, just explain hallucination. It's when AI says the wrong things. It just makes stuff up, and
Yeah.
it's happening more and more. And even I think even when we think we have solved it, when you go to version 3 of ChatGPT to 4 and 5, people, oh, now we solved this. Every time you create a new version of something, guess what? It introduces another problem.
Right.
There's no technology that always gets better in every way. There's always going to be something better, but something else is going to break along the way. So, and so we're struggling with that internally to say, okay, well, what features can we add to our product where if the AI hallucinates, it's not going to cause damage to our users. And when I say damage, we're not talking about help people's health or anything like that, but mislead them, let's say, in some way that we don't
Mhm.
want to do, or damage our reputation as a quality education company. So I think, though, I think from an education standpoint, there are challenges. We are seeing, lots of advantages in creating videos, for example, creating automated voices. I was just recording some automated voices for our telephone system just before this call, and they've gotten a lot better than they were when I was using them years ago.
Mhm.
Um, I think help systems. I'm very optimistic in help. So our products, we're talking earlier how comprehensive our resources are.
Yeah.
So our products being comprehensive is a double-edged sword. It's great because they're incredibly real, incredibly comprehensive, incredibly flexible. So they fit everybody's needs. But it also means our user guides are longer, our instructor guides are longer, and it becomes harder to find the information you need. I think AI will help with that when we add an AI component to our user guide. So you can just ask the question, and AI, I think, will give you a good answer back with references to where you can go more. So, there's a lot of implications and applications for it.
Yeah, absolutely. When you look ahead 5, 10 years, what's next for GoVenture, and what do you see really the role of MediaSpark in the world that's emerging?
Yeah, our plan is to keep building out our products, keep expanding them, making them better. Maybe consider some additional subject areas that we may already be in. So recently, we went into digital marketing and project management. I think the implementation of some of these AI systems will help. We have explored, VR and AR. I think AR is going to be very big, augmented reality and training, huge. In fact, I think it's going to be huge. VR is going to be big. It's already big, although I think AR is going to be the most significant
Yeah.
factor. So it's really about how do we bridge the between those two? Now we do have some VR components already in some of our products. Uh, I think we could add some AR, but I'm a little cautious simply because we're a for-profit company. We can only survive if we sell.
Yeah.
We don't get money any other way. So when I build a product, I gotta, and we've taken a lot of risk, and we have products that aren't designed to necessarily make us money. They're designed as a part of our social cause to facilitate entrepreneurship. So we always have to balance. Well, yeah, we could build all sorts of fancy VR and AR components, but is it going to make the experience better and help us generate enough revenue to cover the expenses and the investment we're going to put into it? That's the biggest challenge that we have. So there's lots of things we can do, and lots of things we will continue to build out our products. But we have to consider those things as well.
Yeah. So, kind of shifting a little bit, if you were talking with an aspiring entrepreneur, someone who's just getting started, or planning to get started soon, what would be some advice that you would give to them?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to know what you want out of this. We all have our own personal objectives for running a business and starting a business. And I think it's important for you to have a good understanding of what it is you want to accomplish, and try not to be influenced by what all the noise that's out there. And today, there's so much misinformation. There is so much fake it till you make it. It's scary and disappointing. And you can believe a lot. You might end up believing a lot of stuff. Oh, all I got to do is put a course online, and I'm going to make $1 million next year. It's really easy, and I can do it from the beach.
So
Uh,
simple, right?
it's yeah. So it is. Know what you want out of it. Don't go because you feel like, oh, I need to raise venture capital, or I need to do this or that. Know what you want out of it. Know that there are no wrong answers in terms of you accomplishing your goals. If you want to be a solopreneur and just have a nice lifestyle that way, there's ways of doing that, which is different than trying to create a high growth business. Or maybe you start one way and you change your mind some way part way through. That's okay as well. The other thing is, prepare for failure, because you're going to fail. You're going to fail every day. And in fact, I think you have a video about failing and learning how to fail.
Yeah.
Um, learn, and that's why I talk about, in terms of simulation, that's one of the most powerful aspects of simulation, which is different than traditional education, where we're taught not to fail, which is the
Right.
exact opposite of the real world, where we're failing every day. In fact, I describe them as micro failures. Every day I fail several times. I failed 9,327 times in the past number of years, based on whatever that micro failure is. So expect failure, uh, be prepared to learn from that failure and adjust and pivot. Um, and just keep learning. You got to keep learning. You got to stay curious. I think that's been the biggest thing for me, is I'm constantly curious to learn new things. I don't necessarily believe everything I read or see,
Yeah.
um, but I'm curious to find out, why does somebody think that way? Why is somebody making this recommendation? Maybe if I try my pricing this way, maybe this will work better. So um, know yourself, know what you want to accomplish, and be curious.
So I'd be interested to know anything going on with GoVenture right now that you're excited about or you'd like people to know about?
Yeah, we just recently launched two online communities for people interested in experiential learning and game-based learning. One is specifically for teachers, and it's at teachingsuperhero.com. So it's a free online community with other educators, where we're sharing ideas and concepts related to experiential learning. And then we have another one for non-teachers, although teachers are welcome to join it as well. It's for anyone, at any age, interested in learning about business and money through games and simulations, and that's at joinbxp.com. BXP, like business experience points. Joinbxp.com. So we're trying to build up a bit of a tribe there, and try to make experiential learning much more widely accessible.
That's awesome. And likewise, what are some ways if someone wanted to reach out to you and just connect for any reason or get to know more about MediaSpark or GoVenture, what are the best ways to get in touch with you?
Yeah, thanks. So our company website is mediaspark.com, and our product website is goventure.net. And I also have my personal website, which is my name, mathewgeorghiou.com.
Excellent. Well, good. Well, before we wrap, I always like to ask, do you have or what is your favorite founder film?
Yeah, so mine is it's quite obscure. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of it, unless maybe they're my age in the tech business, but it's called Triumph of the Nerds. Triumph of the Nerds. It's a multi-series documentary that came out in the 90s, and it actually chronicled the rise of Microsoft and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and how IBM lost out on the personal computer industry. I used to work for IBM as well, which I found interesting. But it's like this inside look of how the industry actually was created. And I found it really interesting.
Nice. Actually, kind of reminds me of Pirates of Silicon Valley, which was around that same, maybe a little more recent than that, but a long time ago, and kind of highlighted that Steve Jobs and Bill Gates.
Yeah, I think that was probably inspired by this, because that came like 5, 6, 7, 8 years after this. I think it might have been inspired by that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent. Good. Well, Matthew, thanks so much for being here and being on the channel. It's really great to hear about your journey and GoVenture, and it was really enjoyed talking with you today.
Well, John, I appreciate you inviting me. Thanks for allowing me to share my story.
Awesome. Well, as I always like to say, keep going.
Keep on trucking. That's what we do.